of yourself. Don't be so high on yourself.
This is a really good new record, isn't it?
I'm loving this.
And the advice is good as well. Don't Be So Hard on Yourself by Billy Lockett. We've got the item coming up. You're going to love this, Bobby. The other night, a year and a half, actually pre-COVID, it wasn't the other night. I was walking home and in the dark, through the city, urban, and I saw lights flashing on top of this building. And when I looked close, a crowd gathered. 2 young men were fighting with lightsabers.
Oh, wow. And it wasn't a film set?
No, and there was no beef. It was just, they obviously decided it's time for a lightsaber fight.
Was it kind of choreographed?
Well, it wasn't organised. I think they were certainly trying to, they were fencing.
Okay.
And I don't think you can hit them very hard on each other, which is a slight design thing. But we're going to talk to a man who makes them in just a second. And one has lit up next door already. I knew that was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen.
Wow. First of all, though, the roads, Bothwell, the A7 to...
The wonder stuff. Now, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, the immensely popular phenomenon that is Star Wars was born, and it came with this. The lightsaber. A sword with a laser beam as a blade. And this has become one of the most iconic movie props of all time, and it's led to the emergence of a new breed of craftspeople who are called sabersmiths. It's a specialised hobby. It requires a steady hand and extreme precision, but people are now building high-quality, custom-made lightsabers for discerning Star Wars fans. And when they start doing this, they discover there's almost an unlimited supply of people who want them. So if you own your own lightsaber, you're going to love this item. Or maybe you've got a partner they've got the Star Wars thing, and you just know their life's not complete without one. Vine@bbc.co.uk is the email. Please include your phone number when you get in touch. WhatsApp us on 08000 288 291. So, Chris Carter, good afternoon. You build lightsabers.
Good afternoon, Jeremy. Yes, I do.
And it's like all the best things. This isn't your main job, but it's something that started with you just thinking, I'll try and build one.
Basically, yes. I was always a Star Wars fan, and I inherited a lathe from my grandfather when he passed away. And my plan was always to build one. The years became decades. I didn't do it. And then finally, around 2018, I decided I'll have a crack at it, went online and found that there was a little... for once, a cottage industry, I think you'd call it, sort of around the world of people making them. So, I decided I knew one would be enough, so I made it a good one. I probably didn't build it that well, but I made it, good parts.
Have you still got that one?
Still got that one, and it does still work.
Yeah.
And then I built another one. I got to about 3 and thought, this is a bit ridiculous. I can't really afford this. And so I started building them for other people.
So, and you found that when you said to people, look, I'm building them, they started to be interested, is that right?
Yeah, I managed to get hold of 3 empty hilts. The handle is known as a hilt. And they'd all sold before I'd even built them. So I just kind of kept going, set up my little website and kept rolling with it.
So you've got one with you now, and you've handed me this one here.
Yeah.
If I put it by the mic, you'll hear the sound when I turn it on. I'm going to press the big button on the hilt. Makes a beautiful noise. Now I'll turn it off. Hang on.
Press and hold.
Yeah. And as I'm doing that, the light is going right up this fluorescent tube and right back down again. It looks a bit like one of the strip light tubes you used to have in the ceiling.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
So you've got one there as well. Introduce us to it and tell us about it.
So this one is a replica of Luke Skywalker's one from the very first film. This is actually a slightly slimmed down version. The real prop was quite fat. It's a bit chunky. You need big hands, which I haven't got. So this is a kind of slimmed down version of it. It's probably the acoustics inside hilts make them sound different. So this is probably my best sounding one.
Oh, I love that. Oh, and as you move it can detect that it's moving, can it?
It can. The processor in it is quite sophisticated. Early ones, just whenever you moved it, it played a single sound effect. But if the sound effect didn't match your movement, it was all out of sync. This works by having 2 looped hums, like a high frequency and a low frequency.
Yeah.
And then it merges them depending on whether you're moving it fast or slow.
Incredible. Let me just try mine again here. So I turn it on, and now I start... Now I'm sort of waving it, and you can hear it's responding to the motion. If I touch it on something, hang on, let's just see. All right. Oh, now it flashes. So you could... Yeah, now you could have the lightsaber fight I described seeing, I guess is tricky because this is quite a lot of expensive machinery.
There are different types, yeah. The one you've got there has LEDs in the blade, about 250 LEDs in the blade. Which
How
is
many?
250.
Wow.
Each one is individually controlled by the processor inside the hilt, so which is how you can get all these different effects.
This sounds... I'm just imagining that you don't have any spare time anymore, right? Are you?
No, I'm waiting for the 60-hour day to be introduced.
And how many are you building a month?
It varies because what I'm finding is for Star Wars fans, the internals are as exciting as the outsides. And of course, we never see the internals in the films. So that's where your sort of creativity can come in. You can design the internal systems, have it 3D printed, wire it all up, and you make it how you think it would look in the Star Wars universe. And what I'm finding is I'm getting more and more complicated requests, which are taking longer and longer. Well, it's not so much like, for example, this Graflex lightsaber, this Luke Skywalker one. I've done an inside version of that, which you can have manufactured in metal, brass and steel and copper. But obviously, that takes quite a long time to sort of put it all together and make it work. There are other designers also that produce these chassis that all are. It's like watchmaking almost. They're so complicated, tiny little parts that all have to fit together, which obviously takes a long time.
And I mean, the fascinating thing to me, Chris, is who is buying them. And I've got a picture of a sort of middle-aged guy who, you know, his first film was Star Wars in 1977, and he's never got over it.
There's a few of those. I'm probably one of them. But there's a lot of people are sort of 20s, 30s,
really?
40s.
Younger?
Yeah. There's a whole spread. I mean, they are mostly male, it has to be said, but I have sold sabers to a few sort of ladies over the last few years.
Let's hear yours again. With that sound, and it's blue now. But what was interesting is as you when you touch it or hit it, it then flashes as if it's. Yeah, exactly. As if the shock is going all the way up and down the shaft.
That's right, yeah. So obviously in the films, when the sabers clash, it disturbs the energy flow, so you get all these bright colours and flickers.
We're going to have some great social media on this, I tell you. How many back orders have you got at the moment?
I've built about just over 100 at the last count.
Amazing.
And I've got a waiting list of about 15 people, but that'll probably take me till Christmas because obviously I'm working around my job, my day job, and things take a while. So
the first time a lightsaber was introduced on screen, we think was this moment. This is Star Wars A New Hope, the first movie.
What is it? Your father's lightsaber. This is the weapon of a Jedi Knight. Not as clumsy or random as a blaster. An elegant weapon for a more civilized age.
Such an iconic moment. We're talking to Chris Carter about his discovered hobby of building lightsabers with almost unending demands. You might be somebody who's got one, or you want one, or you want to talk about it. Do get in touch.
The heart is a blue. She is mobbed by her teammates.
Watch on iPlayer. Listen on BBC Sounds.
All right, we're with Chris Carter. And he makes lightsabers. The lights are off in here at the moment because we've just been having a lightsaber fight. And of course, the funny thing is, I've got mine here. The funny thing is, you can't fight with them. That's the key thing. You can't properly slam them into each other.
There are types that you can fight with, but they tend to be much simpler. They tend not to have sound, much thicker blades, and the lighting for those is in the hilt and not actually in the blade.
Oh, look, mine's given it now. I can go into different modes. Listen.
Luke Skywalker.
What's that? That's the Skywalker one.
There's different in the films. There are different sound effects with different sabers.
Oh, that's got a bit of
different blade colours. So you can set them to all the different options.
Okay, now Chris has got his headphones on, and we're talking about lightsabers. Maureen in Weston-super-Mare, you've got a lightsaber in your life.
I did have when the children were small. We used to on the wards get a catheter, and it was packaged in a tube but flattened, and they made good lightsabers.
A catheter? Chris, what do you think about that? Have you tried that?
I haven't tried that, I have to say. But kids find a way of making anything into anything, I think.
And and so you use them for your kids who are, under 10, I'm guessing?
Well, they can make the sounds themselves.
Yes.
and they weren't worried about not having a light or a colour. They just used their imagination. But it was free. They used to throw them away on the wards.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, it was recycling even then.
Were they called Foley catheters? Was that the word?
Foley. Yeah, they still make a Foley. I think they were size 16, Foley catheters.
Brilliant, Maureen. That has definitely not occurred to Chris, using a catheter. Brilliant. Lightsaber. Stuart in York. This is a fun conversation, isn't it?
It certainly is, Jeremy. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's just the way that once Chris started making them, I know that other people make them as well. I think there's about a dozen serious lightsaber makers in this country, that so many people want them.
Oh, I mean, you know, it's a nostalgia thing for me. I mean, 46 years old, it's a bit old to be wielding toys, but, you know, they light up, like you say, they've got the sounds. You can bash them together. I've got the cheaper version, not a custom one. So, but, you know, it's just a cool item, really. And I love Star Wars. I've got a Stormtrooper armour and, you know, it's brilliant.
Well, there's the thing. I mean, I know that, Stuart, for you and Chris, for you as well, it comes from a love of Star Wars, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, Chris?
Definitely, yeah, absolutely. And a love of science fiction. And of course, the Star Wars films now are quite old. I mean, the first one, 1977. So, like a piece of music, it takes you back to where you were at that point in your life when you saw it. So I'm that 9-year-old boy again.
Stuart, have you got yours with you?
I haven't. I'm afraid I'm on the road, Jeremy. I have pulled over, but
Sure.
But I think the sort of resurgence in TV's sort of you know, series as well has really sort of made them popular among the young children again as well.
Yeah, well, brilliant. Thank you for calling, Stuart. All the best.
All right, thank you. Cheers. Bye bye.
I've got a question for you, Chris. This is from Nathan in Lancaster, and says, with regards to this Star Wars article, does your guest, whether your guest does a Count Dooku hilt? Do you do a Count Dooku? And if not, why not? He says, I'm a fencer, which I don't think has anything to do with the sort of panelled fencing in your garden, and a proper grip would be a big incentive. So he sent a picture. You'll know this. That's the Dooku.
Indeed, the curved hilt. It was Christopher Lee's character was Count Dooku, and unusually his lightsaber hilt was curved and not straight.
Oh, that's difficult.
It is difficult. You can get them, and I have seen them, but I've never actually built one. I did arrange one for another customer. In fact, John Amici has a Count Dooku.
I know that guy,
I managed to track one down that was already built, so I just acted as a broker in that one.
But presumably, if you've got a curved hilt, because I'm guessing the fluorescent shoe basically has to sit in the hilt, so you've got to curve that as well. Then
the end bit is straight. The last sort of 1.5 inches is straight, but it curves after that.
I don't know if I should give out your website because I'm worried you're actually going to get more orders than you can do. But if you want to find Chris Carter, it's sabersense.co.uk, and Saber is Saber. Sabersense.co.uk. Have fun with that.
Thanks.
Chris, thank you so much for coming in.
Pleasure.
And you know they love Eurovision. Do get in touch. Send us a message by email, vine@bbc.co.uk. Sorry, it's a bit of just completely ambient and spurious lightsaber noise for you from the actual film.
Guns that cross the street, you never know who you might be, who's in disguise. Ooh, as you blow a storm, there's no one there to keep you warm. It's no